Fantastic. Well, welcome, John, to Australia. Can you give us a little bit of indication of why are you here? What brought you here?
Who am I? Why am I here? Yes. Now, Australia and I have a very long and rich history. People in Australia back, 20 years ago started to embrace the concept of green chemistry, and I've been probably coming almost every, it's increased, but over the last 20 years, now in the last, say, 5 years, I come on an average of twice a year, spend time in different parts, and it's all about growing the field of green chemistry here in Australia.
So, great leading question. Tell us about green chemistry. What is it, and why are you so passionate about it?
Okay, so the way I explain green chemistry, there's probably about 23 different ways I can do this. So the one that I'll start with first is open up the newspaper, turn on the radio, look on the internet. You hear about this red dye that causes cancer. You hear about this plasticizer that causes birth defects. You hear about this technology that's contributing to climate change. Now, my assumption is that nobody wants those negative attributes. No one is saying, if I could, have this product, and if it could do just a little bit of damage here and there, that would be cool. No one wants that. So why does it happen? If nobody wants something and it happens, that's a problem that needs to be fixed. And if you go back to the education of a chemist, if you go back to an education of a chemical engineer, you will find, surprisingly, that there is almost zero discussion in the education of a chemist of how to anticipate the potential negative harm that a technology could do. And so how can we ask an inventor to invent something that's not a carcinogen if they don't know what a carcinogen is? How can you ask someone to make something not be an endocrine disruptor if they don't know what an endocrine disruptor is? So I believe that people have this passionate desire to do the right thing, but they don't have the ability. So green chemistry is that mechanistic science that trains someone well-trained in chemistry how to do all the amazing things that chemistry has done for the last 200 years, but add on to it the avoidance of contributing to harm to humans and the environment.
That's an incredibly impassioned answer. Oh my gosh. So when a laboratory wants to take this path of moving down to evolve around and evolve themselves around green chemistry, what are the steps that they can take?
The first thing to consider, if you're running a laboratory, obviously you have a budget. You have to buy the equipment, you have to buy the materials and the chemicals. Well, what most people don't fully appreciate is that no matter what organization you're in, there's the amount of money that you pay to bring the chemicals in, and then there's the amount of money you spend to have the chemicals removed. And in every organization, people will be shocked to find that that removal fee is 3 to 5 times more than the acquisition fee. Okay, so it just makes smart sense to be buying chemicals and doing chemistry that creates less waste because of sheer cost. And so the first thing is to assess the practices within a chemistry lab. And it's not reducing what's coming in, but figuring out what part of those things are getting lost as waste and to maximize the value of the inputted materials. But that doesn't happen just because you want to. Someone can't just wave a magic wand and say, now you do this. You need to have certain mechanistic chemical skills to be able to assess these things. And so you need a body of knowledge. It's not just a crisis of desire, it's a crisis of ability. And so someone managing a lab needs to learn the nuances of green chemistry to be able to do that.
You're often referred to as the father of green chemistry. It's a rock star label. How does that make you feel?
Thank you. When people refer to me as something like the father, I typically kind of push back and say, oh my goodness, there are countless fathers, mothers, grandfathers, aunts, uncles, cousins. The family tree of green chemistry is rich and robust, and I happen to be a name on a book, okay? But there are hundreds or thousands of people that have been championing green chemistry over the years. I just happen to be the one with Paul Anastas, who codified this thing and wanted to create a very succinct and well-defined piece of scientific discipline that could be very well defined and understandable.
And so please tell us a little bit about the 12 principles that you and Paul came up with.
So there's a lot of confusion in sustainability. If I say, ask somebody what is sustainable chemistry, you could get a whole bunch of different answers, and everyone's kind of right. Okay. If you ask what is circular economy, everybody has a certain answer. Paul and I really did not want to have that confusion. And so we took the time to write a book. And in this book, there is a chapter. And the chapter of that book is, what is green chemistry? And it's a chapter long. And then there is a section of that, what is the definition of green chemistry? And there is a 17-word definition of green chemistry. And if people say, well, how does that apply to what I do? We expanded that definition for 12 principles so that people in all aspects of the chemical enterprises can translate what that field of green chemistry is, what the definition is, and how to translate that at the mechanistic level to how they apply their trade in chemistry.
So it's kind of like a guidebook.
Yeah, and what's really important is it's not John and Paul saying thou shalt. Got to understand the timeline here, okay? Paul and I started doing green chemistry in 1991-ish, okay? And then the American Chemical Society started to have parts of their meetings, green chemistry meetings. There started to be a Gordon Conference. The United States started a presidential award for green chemistry, all right? And so we had a lot of data to look at how people were doing their creative, imaginative way of accomplishing the goals of reducing impact on humans and the environment and their technology. So we said, how can we codify this? And so we took the totality of it and we sliced it up into bite-sized pieces. Now, there could have been an infinite way that we bite-sized this, but it is comprehensive, not because we are satisfied that we were comprehensive, but because we took it from what was everybody doing and how can we put this in a pedagogically meaningful way. So sometimes people come and say, oh, should there be a new principle or something like that? And again, I worry they didn't read the book because it's not the way you think about it. You know, it's you know, if you describe body parts, arms, hands, feet, and someone said, should we name a new body part? Like, what does that even mean? The body's the body. And so that's kind of the way I look at green chemistry. Yes, I guess we could start calling hands and arms something else, but that would kind of confuse people. It's the same thing with green chemistry. There are now thousands of universities that have courses in green chemistry. There are now at least 14 journals dedicated to the field of green chemistry. At my last count, there are 75 textbooks of green chemistry. Best way to disturb that, say, hey, let's redefine it. And so the whole point is it's already well defined.
Yeah, and obviously the push to get green chemistry into, I guess, the common language. What were the hurdles that you found around that? What were the hurdles and what were the, I guess, key success factors that made it happen? So, and again, I people are super busy. They spread thin doing so many different things. I don't mean this as a criticism, but a lot of times people hear the word green, they hear the word chemistry, they I must know what that is. And then they form a huge, complicated network of opinions and feelings of something that very foundation they actually don't know green chemistry is. And so, but now they've got months, years, many years where they have kind of embraced this perception of what this field of green chemistry is. And so when I walk into a room, I wish I had a blank sheet of paper to start with. But what I walk in is with people that already think they know what green chemistry is. And I gotta tell you, 99% of the time when I walk out of that room, everyone's like, oh, I didn't know that's what green chemistry was. And so my biggest difficulty is challenging people's misperception of what it is. And so
everyone who has taken the time to truly understand. So in my 30-year career doing this, never once, never after hearing me explain what green chemistry is, has anyone ever disagreed with me. Zero.
Wow.
But before they've heard what I had to say, oh, I got to tell you, I don't think green chemistry. And then I go, well, you probably didn't read the book, did you? And so then I go, what other aspects of science that you got strong opinions on that aren't based in knowledge? But that's a different story.
It's a whole different. We could do a whole different story on that one.
Yeah.
So John, you've travelled around the world extensively talking about green chemistry, presenting on green chemistry. You come to Australia. How do you see Australia fit? How do we compare to other countries around the world?
But I don't really want to make it as a comparison. What I find is that everybody's, when we say an Australian, there's a pretty broad Gaussian distribution of what that means. And the same thing, what is a German, what is an American? And so it's making a classification like that. But there is, in every country, there is a nuance, there is a culture, there is a vibe. And what's so important in green chemistry is we need all these different perspectives. And so the Australian perspective on everything is nuanced and different than the perspectives in other places. And what is so precious is that when it comes to molecular science and molecular innovation, even though it seems unrelated, these perspectives and attitudes to the world manifest themselves in these inventions to enrich and create a broader diversity of these innovations. And so I would argue, and I have a little bit of statistics to support this, that the creativity and imagination of science in Australia per capita probably is it's certainly on the top of the list globally of innovations and creativity. It's really quite fascinating to see the advances in flow chemistry, the advances in battery chemistry, the advances that are in Australia that are uniquely special. And so I think that these innovations, there's pockets of them that are second to none. Yeah.
And I mean, Australia, at the moment, our chemical industry here is not as large as other places. But where do you see those opportunities to bring principles, to bring that great research that we do out of the laboratory to solve some of the problems that we see in our industry?
Yeah. So again, chemistry has impact on every aspect of the chemical enterprises. Every product that an individual touches has somewhere in its chain chemistry. So it's everywhere, it does everything. Australia's industry has a different portfolio than Latin America, than France or something like that. So there is a unique portfolio here. And you have a lot of legacy technologies that have 100 years of infrastructure that frankly are very difficult to change that infrastructure. This isn't some epic battle of good and evil. It's just fundamental economics of how to change systems. And so the perception often or not is because of that legacy stuff, it's impossible to change. And I would challenge that that's never true. That even in the most ancient of technology that's been in business for decades, if not centuries, there's always an opportunity to improve the system. Remember, green chemistry, for it to be successful by definition, is a technology that has superior performance, superior cost, and oh, by the way, achieves these sustainability goals. Who wouldn't want that? So if someone isn't embracing it, if they truly understand what green chemistry is and they're not embracing it, it's not because of an absence of desire, it's because of an absence of ability. And that's a harder thing to address.
And you talk about the economics of it. The true principle of green chemistry is that it's not more expensive.
Right.
Unfortunately, there is a perception that as soon as something's green, it has to cost a lot more. How do you deal with, how can we change that perception that's out there?
Unfortunately, I start with a bit of sadness because those companies that don't think that will have a lot more customers that don't believe that. So if someone says, I can't sell this because of X, and X is incorrect, they're losing sales. All right, and so that perception is frankly incorrect by definition. If society isn't using a technology, it's not achieving the goals of reducing hazard to humans and the environment. And for something to be successful, it has to have better performance and appropriate cost by definition. So if something is too expensive, it's not green chemistry. Right? So when someone, so I joke, when someone comes and says, you know, John, we're an industry, we have to worry about performance and cost, I go, they didn't read the book. Because that's the whole point. We can't rely on philanthropy. We can't rely on legislative behavior because elections come and go, opinions change, and so what happens in one administration can change in another. But if the scientists, if the technical people create a technology that is just better because of performance and cost and people want it for those attributes alone, the fact that it's also sustainable is a kind of cool to have.
Merck is a visionary sponsor of your green chemistry educational program, Beyond Benign. Can you tell us a bit more about it?
So Merck has been amazing. It has been absolutely forefront and champion in green chemistry from the very earliest of days. More than any other company on the planet, they have been here. And essentially they recognize that a lot of people get caught up on the material flow, the material pipeline. Where are these materials coming from? Is it from petroleum? Is it from agriculture? Where does this go? Where does this go? And that's important. It is super important. But it's actually, in my mind, secondary. The more important pipeline is the human pipeline. Children go to school. School children go to university. Universities go to industry. And looking at the development of that pipeline, of the skill sets that are there, if we're going to solve the material pipeline, we need that intellectual pipeline to be addressed. And Merck early on recognized that nurturing that pipeline is just as important, perhaps more important, than the material pipeline. Because if you have a strong and stable and accomplished and capable intellectual pipeline, they will do the material pipeline. If you only focus on the material pipeline, who's going to do it?
Who's going to?
Because doesn't matter how much someone wants to do it. There are skills required. Okay, I want to play the violin. I know if I play the violin, I will be a happy person. You can tell me with a very loud voice, John, you should play the violin. A legislation can come out saying all Johns should play the violin. I can go to a symphony, watch people play the violin. It's not going to make me play the violin. To play the violin, I need to find a mentor, I need to find a teacher, and it's going to take a long time to practice to get better. Someone wants to do green chemistry. It's not enough to say, okay, now I'm a green chemist. You need to find a university, you need to find a teacher, you need to practice, and it's not for the weak. You know, to add the layer of green chemistry to traditional chemistry is hard. And a lot of people don't like hard, all right? But hopefully most people don't choose chemistry as a career if they don't like hard. They're in for a lifetime of sadness for many reasons, okay? And so it's not the easy path. It is the harder path because it's doing everything that a traditional chemist does and then adding on top of it an additional layer.
And so Beyond Benign, the organisation that you founded, obviously with the support of companies like Merck along the way, tell us a bit about how Beyond Benign works and what your vision for it is.
Okay, so I'll try not to get emotional here, but my personal hero is Dr. Amy Cannon, my wife. She, in my opinion, has done more for the sustainability community globally than any other individual on the planet. Okay, what she has done is, it is her vision. You know, she said, I'm being her voice here, but what she recognizes is that every university has a professor that loves green chemistry. Every university has individuals that are championing green chemistry. And if a student, by the luck of random draw, finds that professor, they will learn about green chemistry. But if that professor retires or goes to another university, that vacated hole is there forever. And so Dr. Amy Cannon said, we need to create institutional change. We need to have this be not at the layer of the individual, but at the layer of the department, that the department makes a commitment that says we will embrace green chemistry as an institution so that it's not dependent on individuals, and that it now just becomes a mainstay of the curriculum that that university does. And so Beyond Benign has K through 12 programs that we could go on and on about, and has university programs. One of the university programs, in my opinion, the most important one, is the Green Chemistry Commitment, that asks universities to sign a commitment saying that they will bring green chemistry into the required curriculum. And so we have now 210 global signers of the Green Chemistry Commitment. And the thing is it's hard because most faculty don't have this training. You can't just snap your fingers and do it. So it's going to take time. And so the Green Chemistry Commitment isn't just a document, it's a community of universities. And on a very regular basis, there are meetings and webinars. And one university may have decided to create a seminar program to bring it into their curriculum. Another university might have created a standalone course. Another university might have decided to integrate it into the labs. Another university. So there is infinite ways that universities can. And because this is the Green Chemistry Commitment is over 10 years old now, if a new university says we want to do this, they don't have to reinvent the wheel. They go on and they find that this generosity of this organization, this community, all these universities freely post their syllabi, their things. And so a new university doesn't have to start from scratch. They can pick and choose the aspects that they like, and hopefully as they start to grow and nurture and understand it, they will one day add something unique to that bigger community. In 2 years from now, some other new university will be able to take from that. So it's just an amazing, giving, and wonderful community. And it's the brainchild of Amy Cannon, and it's extraordinary.
Amazing, amazing how you can build such a community. I think during COVID, we really saw the importance of the scientific community coming together to solve a problem. We have the opportunity now for green chemistry to do the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah, incredible, incredible. So tell me a little bit about some of the other programs that Beyond Benign has, because obviously it isn't just the kinder through to year 12 and university education. There are other parts of...
So another critical aspect of Beyond Benign's work is called the GCTLC, the Green Chemistry Teaching and Learning Community. And again, if there's ever a video of what we're doing right now, this would be the time to have a Q code. So a QR code should pop up, and people should do that and join the GCTLC. And the GCTLC is a clearinghouse of all things that educators and researchers can go to find this community, tap into this community of all the tools and all the things that people can do. It's free. And so a third grade teacher can download for free. Not even in PDF, in Word format, so they can alter it and make it their own to bring it into their classroom. And so it's just a rich and ever-growing and expanding thing of stuff like that. And so it's a data. Is it a database? Is it a community? I don't know what word you want to say, but the Green Chemistry Teaching and Learning Community, of which Merck sponsors, thank heavens, is a growing and amazing thing. That is one program. There's another program where we have for lack of a better word, it's a mentorship program. We can't go to every high school or middle school and talk to high school and middle school children. But undergraduate students and graduate students can. All right, and if you hear scientists talking to one another, they'll say, oh, back when I did that Diels-Alder reaction, there was a sigmatropic rearrangement and a 1,3-dienophile and the nuclear felicity. And they're using all these words. And sometimes are they just like using words? Does that make a sentence? Does that mean anything? But if you go talk to a 10-year-old, you can't use those words. And so by having undergraduate and graduate students go talk to younger children, the younger children see someone that doesn't look so much different than them, that is inspired and excited. That's great. But more importantly, The scientist has to learn to communicate to the non-science audience. And in my opinion, that is the most important gift we can give a scientist. Because if you look at the history of science, that which makes it to the real world isn't always the best science. It's the best communicated science. The most brilliant scientist in the world who doesn't have the skills to communicate that science will be working alone. Okay, and so we need to respond to that community and how we can articulate and communicate what we do. And if we're going to have a sustainable future, we need communities to understand what chemists do, and chemists need to understand what communities need. And so this mentorship is based on science, but at the heart of it is it's based on communication skills.
Yeah. Well, Merck is very proud to be a visionary sponsor of Beyond Benign. We really truly believe in the work that you and Amy are doing. And our philosophy is really about, if we can spark curiosity for science in the next generation, then we build that, as you said, that pipeline of intellectual knowledge as it comes through. Merck has been an early adopter of your 12 principles of green chemistry and used that in how we design and redesign products in our portfolio. One of those initiatives that we've brought out is Dozen, a tool that helps academics look at what's in their laboratory. Can you tell us a little bit about, you've obviously been fundamental in helping us to build the tool. Can you talk a little bit about it?
So Dozen is one of the most important tools for all working chemists, academia and industry. And we need to do a better job making sure people know about this, because it is fundamental and profoundly impactful for green chemistry. Because the thing we got to remember is that while understanding the desire to do green chemistry is the first step, what does that mean? What does it mean if someone does green chemistry? So what it means to do green chemistry for me is every time an individual for the first time goes in the lab and does something for the first time, they should stop and think of numbers 1 through 12 and ask themselves, what I'm about to do, how does it relate to the 12 principles? Is there some better way to do this? I'm following a prep from 12 years ago. Are better solvents known? Are better processes known? If they go through those 12 principles, that what they'll do is they'll find that sometimes, simple swap. Sometimes they'll find, well, maybe I might be able to do something. Sometimes they're going to find there is nothing better. When they find that there's nothing better, then they must ask themselves, do they have the right personal protection equipment? Do they know how to keep others safe? Are they going to dispose of the material property? But that's the last step, but that first step. But how do people ask that question? Well, throughout history, that's been the biggest problem. Now, if you're on the Merck website, you enter your information, you push a button. And that button gives you a spider chart of the principles of green chemistry. You can look at one material versus another material, one process versus another process, and now you, with nothing's perfect, but with a great foundational background assessment, you say, oh my goodness, this one here is really good for principle 2, 7, and 9, but it's doing a really bad job on 8. Now this one is doing better on 8. That's not, we're putting intellectual thought on what we are about to do, not after the fact, before we even do it. And that tool is precious to the green chemistry community. I can't think of any other tool that can facilitate that. I want to do something, now I'm going to go in the lab and do it. What is that bridge that we can do? And Dozen is amazing today, and as the community works on it and we communicate, my vision is that in years to come, it's just going to get better and better and better. And there is absolutely zero alternatives. Dozen is the only game in town, and it's amazing. And I personally am so grateful for Merck to be doing it.
Thank you, John. Really appreciate your support on that. So if we look at, I mean, you've achieved so much throughout your career so far. Where is your vision? What would be your hope for the future?
Oh, yeah, it's interesting. I am very lucky. I've had so many people helping me. Merck has been helping me. My family has been helping me. My community has been helping. The global community. I just feel so lucky to have so many tailwinds helping me in the things that I do. It's just precious. But what's most important to me, I guess I'll call it my deathbed report card. Okay? Kind of a nasty way to do it, but pretty unambiguous what I'm talking about there, okay? Is right now, very few universities teach anyone in chemistry and chemical engineering anything about how to anticipate these negative impacts that chemistry can have on human health and the environment. There's a little bit about known chemicals. We're starting to maybe 1 or 2% of the chemistry curriculum. Oh, how do I look up the MSD sheet for this, that, and that thing? Just next to useless, but better than nothing. But if someone makes something new that has never existed in the world before, which most chemists aspire to do, there is nothing. And when every university sees that is job one, that how do we make sure that a chemist inventing something new has the tools to anticipate the potential negative impacts. And that while I love the green chemistry commitment, my goal is not to have every university sign the green chemistry commitment. My goal is to someday have the green chemistry commitment be irrelevant because it's just the way we now do chemistry. Got a long way to go. Right? But that is what is most important to me, that we change, because if chemists do that, then all those sectors of society that mistrust chemists and say, look at the toxins, look at all the bad you people do, all right? If universities don't embrace this, then we deserve it. If universities embrace this, our relationship with the rest of society will start to be where it needs to be.
I can't agree more with you on that. Seeing that chemistry is not something bad, every day we drink chemistry, we drink water. I mean, this is just, it's really the font of life.
Right, but we exactly, there are products. There is, I won't embarrass the brand, but there is a sunscreen. And on the label of the sunscreen, it says chemical free. So as you put that on your skin, is it an idea? Is it a thought? What is, and so society has, through marketing, that absolutely knows what it's doing, misleading the public in this concept of chemical free. What we really mean to say is hazardous chemical free. But because chemists have no training in these nuances, because never in their career do they have courses about what makes molecules toxic, what makes whenever there's a group of people talking about the hazards of chemistry, probably not a chemist in the room. So we get what we deserve if we're not part of the conversation. So part of the manifestation that green chemistry will adopt into the culture is now it'll give people that sense of confidence to go into those rooms. And it's not to defend chemistry, but to be part of that conversation. If we're part of the conversation, we move society forward. If we're not part of the conversation, we are the villain.
That's it. So the key is education. The key.
So John, tell us how someone who's got an interest in green chemistry or an interest in Beyond Benign, how can they learn more about it?
First of all, thank you if you are someone out there that is interested in this. Thank you. The world needs your interest. The world needs your participation. So once you've said, I want to learn more, the first stop is www.beyondbenign.org. And then within that is the Green Chemistry Teaching and Learning Community, GCTLC. And so that website is the foundational place to begin. And then the community group, the Green Chemistry Teaching and Learning Community, those are the first go-to places. And from there, you will be able to go to an infinite number of other places. But that's the first stop.
So John, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. It's great to have you here in Australia, but we really appreciate the time to sit down and talk to you, pick your brain a little bit, but really understand what inspires you to really push green chemistry. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you very much, and thanks in return for all that Merck is doing. Beyond Benign, we couldn't do what we're doing without you, so thank you.